everyone and welcome back to my channel, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Cattleya orchid care, how I'm growing them in my environment, and also show you a couple of later blooming Cattleyas that have come into bloom for me and I'm just super excited to share with you guys. And I just wanted to briefly mention that last week I hit 1,000 subscribers on my channel, which may not seem like a lot of subscribers to large channels, but to smaller channels and when you're first starting out, having 1,000 people subscribe to you who don't hate what you say is quite a huge deal, and it's actually quite a big milestone that YouTube kind of celebrates as well. And at that stage they give you the option to monetize your channel and also open the community tab. I haven't got the community tab yet, but I have made the decision going forward to monetize this channel. So what that'll mean is you'll just see some ads at the beginning and end of videos. I'm not going to do any mid-video ads, and they're going to be skippable. So I just wanted to make you guys aware that that was happening, so you don't just see the ads and kind of get put off. But obviously they are skippable and there's no obligation at all to watch them. Any income that I do make would go straight back into the orchids. It's not ever going to be like an income stream for me with significant revenue, but I just wanted to let you guys know that I'd made that decision so that you know what's going on with this channel, and hopefully I've got some plans for the future, which I was going to do some giveaways, but that might be a little bit limited by current political situations, but we will see what happens with that. And thank you so much for sticking with me. So on to the subject of this video. Today we are going to be talking about Cattleya orchids. This is the Cattleya Guttata crossed with Velutina, and it's an absolutely beautiful hybrid. Bifoliate Cattleya, both of the parents in its ancestry are species Cattleyas, and they're bifoliates, so they are, in theory, I think bifoliates are supposed to be a little bit trickier to grow, a little bit slower. In practice I think it kind of depends on the bifoliate Cattleya. Obviously some of the hybrids with bifoliates are actually going to be very easy to care for still, and this is certainly one of them. It's a very vigorous Cattleya and it's produced two quite large beautiful blooms for me, although this monster next to it is making them seem quite small. They are in fact quite large, and they're also waxy. I love dotted Cattleyas. I love Cattleyas with spots in their flowers. And another thing, the lip, although it does look very kind of flimsy, is actually a very sturdy lip. Really beautiful texture and colour, which contrasts wonderfully with the almost brownish, slightly orange flowers. And they're absolutely beautiful. I really love it, and it's, as you can see, quite a vigorous grower. We've got quite a few roots down into the media now. I only got this one this year, so I was very surprised when it bloomed for me, because the new growth that it put out has only reached half the size really of its previous growth, but apparently this is still adequate to bloom. So yeah, it's a really beautiful orchid. Another thing that is wonderful about it is the fragrance. So it's only opened up a couple of days ago. It's taken a few days to really come out, but I'm working from home today and I went into the grow room just to check on them, and it's got this absolutely wonderful fragrance. It's so intense. I walked in to the grow room and I could smell it, and I was like, what is that smell? So I was going around doing sniff tests on all the orchids, and it just hit me in the face when I actually went and smelt the flower. It's almost overpowering up very close, but it's almost like, I was trying to find a way to describe this morning, and it's kind of like cherry menthol cough syrup. Like, it's really beautiful, very sweet fragrance. But it's kind of got a little bit of spice, and I think it does smell a little bit minty as well. It's really unusual fragrance, and I think cherry menthol cough syrup does sum it up very well. So if you're very sensitive to fragrances, this one is, you know, it's going to be a little bit overpowering for you, I think. I'm not sure which of the species, if one or maybe both of the species in its parentage give it this fragrance, but yeah, it's something to be aware of. It's a very strong fragrant Cattleya, but I absolutely love it, and I love the waxiness of the flowers and how kind of glossy they are. So yeah, that is the Cattleya Guttata crossed with Velutina. And then this beautiful monster over here is the RTH Fu Shu Glory Happy Holiday. Now this is one that I got from Schwerter in a haul I did an unboxing for, and what it did was it produced a sheath that then dried on the new growth. So I thought, well, I'm not getting any flowers from that. It then produced another, it had lots of new growth, so it produced another sheath from one of the other new growths, which then dried again. So again, I thought, well, it's not going to bloom this year then. Then in the dried sheath, I actually saw buds starting to form. So it's one of those that can actually bloom and form buds in dried sheaths. So it's quite an interesting pattern to the bud formation. And this does happen with some Cattleyas. They can kind of form buds at various stages in sheath development, or some of them even don't develop sheaths. So it's always a bit of a guesswork as to whether you're going to get buds in your sheath or not. But yeah, you've just got to be patient and wait and see. Sometimes they do actually need help escaping from their sheaths, but this one didn't, and neither did the Guttata crossed with Velutina. But sometimes I've noticed that some buds do get trapped in their sheaths with Cattleyas. They can be a little bit silly, and I think it's just the genetics of the parents, with maybe ones that form very big flowers and ones that form very many flowers working against each other maybe. But this is an absolutely huge flower. It's monstrous. I love it. You can really see the Dowiana in the lip. Look how frilly and beautiful that is. But at the same time, it's quite a sturdy flower. Now, I was not disappointed. A little bit disappointed, maybe, with this flowering, because the Fu Shu Glory Happy Holiday, the pictures that float around on the internet have like beautiful white contrasting stripes. And obviously I've got a seedling and a seedling variation and no white stripes, just a nice solid butterfly-like beautiful yellow flower, which was very greenish yellow when it first opened, but it seems to have faded a little bit to a more kind of buttery yellow. And it's got these lovely little stripes at the edges of the petals. And the lip just blows me away. You can really see the Dowiana in it. I think it's only like 9% of the overall parentage or something like that. I'll link you down in the description to the Orchid Roots website. See how the yellow kind of bleeds into the lip on the back there? It creates really beautiful striping and a really beautiful texture. It's just absolutely beautiful. One of the main features is the beautiful contrasting lip. Now, this one has only recently opened and I can't detect any fragrance yet, but it has also been sat next to this one, where if I go to smell the Fu Shu, all I can smell is this cherry menthol cough syrup kind of smell from this guy. So I will check back and maybe put a fragrance description in the description down below if I do detect fragrance, because in theory if there's Dowiana in the parentage it could well have a fragrance, because the Dowiana is kind of famed for having the fragrance. But it is only a small amount of the percentage, so we will have to see. But with flowers like this, you kind of almost don't need a fragrance. Absolutely huge. And I am kind of seeing at the top here, there's a striping down the centre of the dorsal sepal. I wonder if as it ages, some of that white striping comes out when this fades. We'll have to see. You also have this actually on the other sepals, just to a lesser extent, so maybe we will get some slight striping. But regardless, it's a beautiful, beautiful flower. Not maybe what I was quite expecting, but there you go, that's seedling variation for you. And I've still got a beautiful orchid. Very, very vigorous grower, as you can see. I recently gave a division of this to Christine in exchange for some grow stones, and it's still a massive plant. And it has only produced one flower on like a very, very long spike. See, the spike kind of ends here and then the flower developed. Yeah, it's very, very interesting kind of spike formation. It almost hangs pendant, but it's, yeah, absolutely beautiful. Lovely Cattleya. So in my collection, I seem to mainly gravitate towards bifoliate Cattleyas. I was sorting through them a little bit for this video and realised that most of my Cattleyas are bifoliate. I seem to prefer the flower type and shape that you get on the bifoliate Cattleyas. I do have the Dowiana, which is a unifoliate. I do have a few other unifoliates, but mainly my collection seems to consist of bifoliate Cattleyas. They can produce multiple directions of growth in a growing season, which most of mine actually do. You can see this one here has 2 new growths starting, and this has a lot of anthocyanins coming up. It's a primary cross, I believe, with Laelia purpurata and another Cattleya. I think the name of this one is potentially LC elegans, maybe. I have to double check that. It came saying it was a Laelia purpurata, and then obviously I've got a bifoliate and immediately knew it wasn't actually a Laelia purpurata. But yeah, that one again, it's bifoliate Cattleya, 2 new growths, loves semi-hydro, does very well. And that kind of leads me on to another point. All of my Cattleyas are in semi-hydro with lacquer, or some of the more moisture-loving species have some pumice mixed in, and they are all doing really, really well in semi-hydro. I'll link you down below to an unpotting video I did, which was actually, it was quite lengthy because it was a bit of a struggle, but I think that unpotting video kind of shows that Cattleyas can do very well in semi-hydro, depending of course on the environment and the conditions they're grown in. But yeah, they're all grown in semi-hydro. They're warm growers, warm to hot growers for the most part. I don't have any of the Laelias that are kind of cooler growing in my collection, although I would definitely be interested in getting into them at some point. We'll see if that actually happens. Obviously, orchid availability at the moment may decrease slightly with certain political situations going on in the EU, but yeah, it depends on obviously the availability in a few weeks' time. So I don't have any of those in my collection. I've just got the warmer to hotter growing, mostly bifoliate Cattleyas, and yeah, they all do really well in semi-hydro as long as you can keep them warm enough. I can definitely see there being issues if you're living in a cooler environment with roots sort of rotting because they're in very cold, wet media basically. Semi-hydro is a constantly moist environment with the leckers wicking water down from a reservoir. In a warm environment, they absolutely love that. Cattleyas do like a lot of moisture, but in a cooler environment, that's probably a bit too much because obviously clay media is going to stay cooler than the surrounding ambient environment anyway. So I think the clay media, like in the pot, it can actually be a few degrees Celsius lower than the ambient temperature, which is quite a big drop in temperature due to the evaporative cooling effect. This is great for cooler growers obviously, but for warmer growers you need to really be careful with lacquer and other kind of inorganic materials that wick in like a wicking system. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on Cattleyas, a little bit about how I grow them. They're all either on a windowsill getting direct sunlight, so a south facing windowsill in my grow room, or under my artificial lights. So this RTH Fu Shu Glory Happy Holiday has been growing completely under my LED Gemma grow lights, so it's doing really well under that, but they are high light orchids, so they do need that higher light in order to bloom well. I fertilise them exactly the same as all my other orchids. They get quite high fertilisers with kind of every watering during summer, and in winter I do dial back on that a little bit if they're not growing as quickly, but I kind of monitor the plant, and if they're still growing rapidly, like if they're in a kind of more temperature controlled environment in my grow room in winter, they can obviously still continue their growth year round really, so they still need fertiliser year round. But if they're slowing down and not growing as much, they definitely wouldn't need as much fertiliser. So I think when people talk about fertilising, it's just really important to monitor what your orchid is doing, because if it's growing loads, it's using loads of nutrients and therefore it needs loads of fertiliser, so you're not going to get an accumulation in the pot that's going to build up on roots and burn root tips. If it's not actively growing, it's not using as much, therefore if you're giving it excess, it's going to accumulate in the pot, and that can result in like root tip burn. So I think it's really important to just watch what your orchid is doing in terms of fertilising. There's no like hard and fast, easy to follow rule. I wish there was, but there isn't, I don't think. So obviously, if you're unsure, going lower is better than going too high and burning root tips, I guess would be the advice that I give, not just with Cattleyas, but with any orchid in general, to be honest. And I think that's kind of what I wanted to show you guys today with my Cattleyas and talk a little bit about how I'm growing them. So if you've got any questions at all, please do leave a comment down below and I will do my very best to answer. And if you did enjoy this video, then give it a like or subscribe to my channel for more regular orchid updates. And I will see you guys later. Bye!